Alright, let's talk about memes. Now, this is not memes pertaining to my channel specifically. These are memes and posts. They're bad memes. They're not even really memes. The actual thing is a lie. These are posts that I'm pulling from a Facebook group called Religion and Atheist Debate Central. And with a group name like that, expect some spicy hostility. Before we get into that, though, a couple of things. First of all, we have to get into the fan art section. So, first bit here, we have a logo, actually, and this was made by Nyanhi, who is a new person in our Discord. And honestly, there's a part of me... Tater Shaman, thank you very much for resubscribing. There's a part of me that sees this and wants to change the channel icon to it with permission of the original artist. But next, we have a Warframe Suris, and this one was created by Ziggy Diggy. They said they can't draw due to nerve issues, but they can put Swimsuit Suris and Growlithe into Warframe, so I guess this is as close an approximation to my character as you're going to get in Warframe. That is a thing. So, what is the other announcement before we get into these strange memes? With some deliberation, I have opened up a merch shop. All the designs here have been made by YaraKoro, and they are products of the OWO war that has been going on my Twitch channel for ages. So, for the designs themselves, Starstrike Prime, thank you very much for the subscription. It is at that moment that I realized I need to actually lower OBS's volume even more than I already did. So, we have... This is the one time you get it for free. We have OWO versus Uwu. We have Raz's side of the conflict assaulting the glorious OWO Empire. No, not Empire. No. That sounds nasty. And then we have my side, because the OWO side is innocent and the Uwus are the oppressors. And they are definitely trying to assault everything that is good and lovely and cinnamon roll flavored. Now, I'm not going to get into all of the different versions of merch here, but we do have things like mouse pads, we do have things like hats, things like shirts, all kinds of stuff. So if you want channel merch of any kind, then please head over to my Redbubble. There will be a link in the description below. With that said, let's go ahead and get into the first... Again, I keep saying meme, but it's really not. It's really not.
Dear pretending to be atheist, since you claim to not have a soul and no life beyond here, does that not make you of the same value as chickens and cockroaches?
No, you're mistaking atheism for veganism. And that's mainly a joke. But the idea that humans have the exact same value as any other living being, that would be that less have to do with atheism and more have to do with a form of veganism. Animal activism is what you're looking for. I'm so sorry you got that wrong. Dear sir, this is a Wendy's. But to answer here, merely saying that humans don't have a soul does not suddenly mean that we could not make value judgments between us and various other living organisms. There's no categorically special thing about a soul that makes you incapable of making a value judgment otherwise after that point. But again, thank you for comparing this so terribly that you mistook all atheists for vegans. The next one, and I'm having to scroll down on this because if I don't, then I'll end up showing the person's name, and I'd rather them not get doxxed, despite it being a name they have publicly available on Facebook. First one here. Difference between atheist perspectives, I imagine. Life on Mars.
Whoa! Is that actual bacteria? Amazing! We found life on Mars!
Life on Earth.
That's not life! A person exists at birth. If it's inside a mother, it's not actual life yet!
So this is an anti-choice argument, a pro-birther argument. I'm sure they would prefer pro-life, but that's really not how we're going to be operating here. So, I'm just going to say this right now. Most conversations where a fetus is concerned, at least on my channel, will not be about the relevant size of the fetus. My argument that is a pro-choice argument literally gives personhood to the fetus at all stages of development. even from a zygote stage. If I am granting personhood to that zygote, which I'm willing to do in this hypothetical, then they still do not have the ability to violate the woman's body. A woman still has the wherewithal to choose what does and does not utilize her body as a resource. That has nothing to do with the relative size of the life that we happen to be talking about right now. But, thank you for getting all of that wrong here. Another one we have here.
The atheist says that there is no proof of hellfire, yet nothing scares him like it, and that he would fume and curse at the sound of it. Self-deceit.
So, tell me that you're an abusive piece of shit without telling me you're an abusive piece of shit. These are all made by the same person. As for who, I'm not doxing them. I'm not. But I'm just going to say this right now. If you are the type of person who threatens a child with hellfire, I think that that is an abusive thing to do. So when you say, well, you say that there's no proof of hellfire, but nothing scares you like it, yeah, it's called trauma. You could have no proof that you're going to stab me right now because you happen to exist on the other side of the world, but that doesn't stop victims of abuse from still fearing the potentiality of that, that stabbing happening again, that assault happening again, despite the likelihood that it won't happen again. That's called trauma, Karen. Again, tell me you're an abusive piece of shit without saying it in so many words. This is how you do it. This is exactly how you do it. Another one, we are finally outside of the ones made by the same person that I forgot to censor the name off of. Now we can just grab them wholesale. Atheism is the only lofty position that authors nothing, apparently. And I forgot to use the Tristan Taylor voice because I am tired and stupid. But I was going to say this right now. Atheism not offering anything, first of all, it's not a lofty position. It's really not. If you take the colloquial version of atheism, you just don't believe gods exist, there's nothing lofty about that position. If you take the more hardline, say a local atheist, who vehemently disagrees with various types of gods, they could use the problem of evil or any other version of that argument, does not matter. That position still isn't very lofty. Whether it is I'm not convinced or I don't think that thing doesn't exist, that is not a momentous thing. There's no hellfire. There's no baggage that comes with that. And a position offering nothing, it doesn't have to. If you are having to offer me something with your worldview, then my response to you is that sounds like you're a used car salesman. Worldviews should be things that are choices of individuals based on their cumulative experiences. They should not be grab bags that are sold to me by a used car salesman from a pulpit, trying to convince me that I'm going to burn in a fiery lake if I don't accept his grab bag of nonsense. Atheism does not offer anything because it isn't a used car salesman that's having to add things to sweeten a deal. Oh, you don't have to burn in hell if you believe in Jesus Christ, and to sweeten the deal, you get immortality too. Atheism doesn't have to have any of that. It's a position that just doesn't need it. Now we have a bit of a long one here.
One point that's always brought up against religion is violence. Did you know that Hitler was inspired by Darwinism? Especially social Darwinism. He believed that the Aryan race is the pinnacle of human evolution. Many white people still believe that, until today. So the most violent war in human history was inspired by a clearly non-religious ideal.
Okay, so we already have a couple of problems. First of all, the religiosity where Hitler was concerned, he had the backing of the Catholic Church. And there were also Christian organizations who were against him. The religiosity doesn't need to factor in. And not to mention, when it comes to religion as violence, religion gets used as a tool. Despite all that, this sounds like a point that's trying to be made against Darwinism, or more accurately, the theory of evolution. The theory of evolution doesn't actually espouse social Darwinism in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't actually make a moral value judgment. So bringing that up is kind of pointless. Not to mention, the idea that human beings could have a pinnacle, that's obviously not Darwinism at that point. That's Lamarckian evolution. Lamarckian evolution is the idea that things ascend on a ladder and get better and better every single time they move through mutations and evolve, and eventually you hit this pinnacle of what can be achieved by that living organism. Darwinian evolution merely talks about adaptation, which at best can make you better suited for specific environments, but it cannot make you the best version of yourself. And the mutations, being the random and precocious things they are, can oftentimes be very, very bad. Even if you had a race of perfect Aryan people, eventually mutations would happen in those genes too, and you'd be equally fucked going forward. And to say that it was only social Darwinism that led to World War II is a naive take on World War II at best. There are various other factors that went into starting that war. It was not just this single idea taken to its logical extreme by a single man. There were several factors at play. Nazi ideology is complicated and scary and absolutely dehumanizingly horrible. But it is also complex. Open up a history book, please. Which is why the last part of it is funny.
And of course, anyone with the slightest knowledge of history will tell you that humans have been killing each other way before religions. I'd like an intelligent fact-back rebuttals.
Okay? Hopefully this was one of them. Also, the mere fact that people killed each other before religion doesn't mean that religion is not a uniquely effective killing tool. If I am telling you that all the people over there are bad because they're black, then if you're white, I could use an us versus them and it will function. But if I lose that ability, if everybody looks kind of like you, or the idea of people looking like you hasn't been part of your social zeitgeist, you can be taught through religion. This can be done through atheism as well, so don't think that this is a merely anti-religious point. But you can be taught to hate people merely because of their religion. If you're an atheist, there are people who probably teach you to hate Muslims. All the time. Usually you don't see it as much with Christians, but we uniquely see a lot of very Islamophobic things come out of very, very edgy atheists. Now, let's talk about what happens with Christians. They believe that they are persecuted in many cases. They believe that persecution uniquely is happening to them, and that the more they are persecuted, the more righter they happen to be. Now, if you happen to have that kind of complex, how easy is it to justify a holy war? It gets really easy, and in fact, we've seen things like arguing that God has chosen Trump to be the leader of the United States, therefore, let's go ahead and attempt an insurrection on his behalf to make sure that he can stay the leader of the United States. These are things that you can do. Also, apparently Hitler is a banned word in my chat, so I'm having to allow those conversations manually. So this feels like a take that just ignores history in any way, shape, or form. And this is me granting that they're right about Hitler and social Darwinism. That is also not necessarily historically accurate. But if I'm to grant the premise, then that's where we go. The next one.
Do you believe a physical book could make itself? No? Do you believe that the instruction book of life, DNA, could make itself? I will let you answer.
Well, actually, we can see from the building blocks of amino acids into RNA into various other mechanisms, we can actually see how DNA slowly builds itself into what it is, and even how it fucks itself up going forward. So the fact that we actually do see organisms that show us these various stages of DNA coming into the sequence that we understand now, to the point where we can map out the human genome, I believe that various mutations and various circumstances can come together to create what we know of as DNA, but I think to call DNA a book is to assume that there necessarily has to be an author, And if there happens to be somebody inscribing my DNA as I'm being conceived, then 1, that's weird. My parents are boinking. Get out of that room. 2, I'm sorry. Could you have not given me the back pain? I could have enjoyed the back and knee pain. Those things going away would have been great. The knees I've been dealing with, since I was a kid. The back is a new thing, and I'd really like that written out, please. If you could just erase that part of my genome, it'd be real happy. We got 2 more. And this one is, well, it's a bit special.
The Darwinism evolution is a theory.
This guy can't spell.
Grammar. The Darwinism evolution is a theory. Explain how life started in Earth and how the first cell evolved. And it's the theory used by atheists to deny the designer of life on Earth. There is no proof of it, and it doesn't make sense for me. Therefore, the life required a designer. In another word, God exists.
Well, despite the fact that that was very incoherent and unintelligible, let's assume what was being said. The first point, Darwinism being a theory to explain how life started on Earth, incorrect. Evolution does not talk about how life began. That is not a thing evolution talks about at all. The theory of evolution is about the diversification of life. The idea that single-celled organisms can eventually become multi-celled organisms, which we have actually found predator cells that have actually done that, turning into multi-celled organisms instead of digesting them. And then those multi-celled organisms can then change and adapt over time until we get the very complicated version of multi-celled organisms you see today. That's diversification of life. You have one type of organism, and then you have 2 when you have one single cell and one multi-cell organism, and then you get a 3-celled organism, and then a 4-celled organism, and then eventually it diversifies into what we have today and continues to diversify going forward. That's what evolution talks about. Now, if you're talking about how life started on Earth, then maybe we should be talking about abiogenesis. Maybe we should be talking about that. But we're not talking about Darwinistic evolution. That has nothing to do with life beginning. That has to do with life diversifying. They said it's a theory used by atheists to deny the designer of life on Earth. Now, evolution can be used to deny the design of life, because you would expect that a perfect designer would have created us in a way that didn't blow ass, that would have created us in a way that didn't involve us having to breathe in poisonous gases to survive, that didn't require us to have oxygen literally creating small explosions in our cells over time, would have created us in a way that telomeres didn't actually get smaller and smaller every time our cells replicated, would have created us in a way that our teeth didn't have to be literally ripped out of our faces, lest we end up dying of random-ass gum diseases. Like, there's 1,001 things you could correct about how humanity functions right now, and if a perfect being is the designer of this, then I'm sorry that human beings, as your 6th grade art project, failed so horribly. But the proof of it, again, we've actually seen single-celled organisms become predator organisms and grab other single-celled organisms, and instead of destroying them, consuming them, populating and becoming a multi-celled organism bit by bit. We've actually seen those early stages where evolution is concerned. We have seen other various life forms evolve over time by studying them over multiple generations. The common cold is constantly mutating, and that is something that is explained by the theory of evolution. The backbone of modern biology is the theory of evolution, and it works pretty fucking well. Now, the final part is, it doesn't make sense to me, therefore life required a designer. All I have to say is, LOL. That's the only thing I have to say to the end of that. The final one, though, we have a final. This one is long. It is complicated. This last one's probably going to take the majority of the video, and I don't know how to feel about it. but we're going to tackle it anyway.
Join Islam.
To that, I will say no. Probably not, no. No, I don't think I will. As for my reasons, most of my problems with Islam exist in Christianity, so I'll just copy-paste those over, and it'll be fine. But specifically, there is something about the putting Muhammad as a character up on a pedestal that I have issues with. Mainly being that he was a pedophile, and I don't think that worshiping of a pedophile is that great. And I'm not talking about worship in the way that you worship a god. I'm using a very loose form of worship. You have to remember, I grew up as an evangelical Baptist kind of boy where worship meant playing your video games a little too much. So I think that that putting a character like Muhammad on any kind of pedestal, despite the, we'll call it what it is, rape of Aisha, I think I'd prefer not. I think I'd prefer not. Reverence, that's the word I'm looking for. Reverence. Yeah, I don't want to partake in anything that reveres a character like that in any way, shape, or form. So it's all of my problems with Christianity, plus I don't like that part. That part's not great to me either. So no, we just won't do that. We just won't do any of that. Well, I guess it didn't take as long as I thought it would. Anyways, those were literally just a bunch of posts that instead of arguing with the people on those posts on Facebook, I figured I'd make it a little more fun. I would grab those, toss them into here, and we would just do a grab bag response to a bunch of them. Let me know if this is a kind of video you want to see me do again in the future. Maybe specifically with memes, like memes, as opposed to these very, very fake memes. Let me know, because I think it'd be kind of fun. It's not the bestest content in the entire world, but it could be an enjoyable time, I think. But let me know what you thought about any of the responses that I give. If you have any issues with the things that I said in this video, you're already typing in the comment section below, or you just didn't make it to the end of the video and you've already typed out all the reasons why you hate me down there anyway. Don't worry, I see you, John. With all that said, if you want to support the channel and what I do, there are ways to do so in the description below. And as always, everyone, insert end the video tagline here.